Hello. Have you ever heard some of these sayings? You can lead a horse to water. Give me a break, give me a break. Or if at first you don't succeed. Perhaps you've heard of these, and even though I didn't finish them, you could probably tell what the ending to all of these phrases were. They're probably already in your mind, and just simply saying that first part calls up to you the rest of this. We know these sayings even though we can only hear just a piece of it. Okay? Now, take that idea and we'll hold it here because we're going to come back to that. Perhaps I've told you this story before, but when I was in grad school, I got the opportunity to intern at the Le Bonheur Children's Hospital in Memphis as a chaplain. And so my job was to go from room to room, asking people how they were doing, asking if I could pray for them, asking how their child was progressing, if they were doing better, if they were doing worse. And so I saw several people. I saw a kid with cancer whose family wanted to know why them, why this, why my kid. I saw a girl, 16-year-old girl, who needed heart bypass surgery. Something was going on with her heart, and her parents also wanted to know why them, why her, why now. Saw some people who had saw some babies that had been abandoned because of dysfunction or some kind of disfigurement. And the nurses there wanted to know why this child, why them, why were they abandoned, this feeling of loneliness and how God fits into all of this. And so many ask the question, where is God? You know, does he see these things that are going on? Does he know? Does he just turn his face away? And why, when we need him most, do we feel that he is most absent? So I think the person who had the right to ask this question, where is God, the most, was Jesus when he was on the cross. Now, the Gospel of John shows that the Father and the Son have this inseparable relationship. In fact, Jesus usually goes off to pray and talk to his Father all the time. And so they have this really, really close bond. However, at the time of crucifixion, was he alone? Dark clouds descended, and there was no light shining for the period that Jesus was on the cross. Did the Father turn his face away? Let's read Matthew chapter 27, and we're going to start, we're going to start in verse 32, and we'll go through verse 50. And as I read this, I'd like for you to pay attention to some of those small details because they're going to be very important as we continue on. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. There they offered Jesus wine to drink mixed with gall, but after tasting it, he refused to drink it. When they had crucified him, they divided up his clothes, casting lots, and sitting down, they kept watch over him there. Above his head, they placed the written charge against him, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 robbers were also crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their head and saying, "You who were going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. Come down from the cross, if you are the Son of God." And in the same way, the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders mocked him. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusts God. Well, let God rescue him now, if he wants him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" In the same way, the robbers who were crucified next to him also heaped insults on him. Everyone is heaping insults on Jesus from all directions around him. Now, from the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over all the land. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" When some of those standing heard this, they said, "Maybe he's calling Elijah." Immediately one of them ran and got a sponge, filled it with wine and vinegar, and put it on a stick and offered it up to Jesus to drink. The rest said, "Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to save him." But with a loud cry, Jesus gave up his spirit. Can you imagine how alone Jesus must have felt when he was on the cross? But is it really true that he was alone? We're going to take that story from Matthew chapter 27, and we're going to put that to the side, and we're going to bring back those phrases that we had started off with. Now, we know these things because they are so ingrained into our culture. But in the Hebrew life, the Psalms were ingrained into their culture in the same way these phrases are. And so you could actually start off a psalm by just reading off the first part of it, and it would call to memory what the entire psalm is about and all the rest of it entirely. So they sang these psalms at certain occasions. They, as they worshiped, or at certain times of the year for certain feasts and things like that. And so they would have had the opportunity to have gone through them all. Now, one of the preachers that I grew up with likes to frequent a monastery in some of his recharge time, and told me that these monks there actually worship God 7 times a day. And in these worship times, they actually chant through all of the Psalms. And so in the span of 1 year, they can go through all the Psalms multiple times. Okay? So that's kind of what it would have been like for people in Israel. They would have known these Psalms. So when you have something memorized, all you need to do is say the first line, and it conjures to mind the rest of the psalm. So Jesus' quote is actually from Psalm 22. So if you want to go there with me, you can. I'm going to go ahead and start reading it all. This is the very first line in Psalm chapter 22. My God, why have you forsaken me?" So this is the psalm that Jesus is calling to mind. Let's see what it has to say. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer, by night, and I am not silent. Yet you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the praise of Israel. In you our fathers put their trust. They trusted you, and you delivered them. They cried to you and were saved. In you they trusted and were not disappointed. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by men, despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their head. He trusts in the Lord. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Yet you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you, even at my mother's breast. From birth I was cast upon you, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one around to help. Many bulls surround me, strong bulls of Bashan encircle me, roaring lions tearing their prey, opening their mouths wide against me. And I am poured out like water, and all of my bones are out of joint. My heart has turned to wax, it has melted away within me. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You lay me in the dust of death. Dogs have surrounded me. A band of evil men have encircled me. They have pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all of my bones. People stare and they gloat over me. They divide my garments among them and cast lots for my clothing. But you, O Lord, be not far off. O my strength, come quickly to help me. Deliver my life from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dogs. Rescue me from the mouth of the lions. Save me from the horns of the wild oxen. I will declare your name to my brothers. In the congregation, I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All of the descendants of Jacob honor him. Revere him, all you descendants of Israel. For he, ready? For he has not despised or disdained the suffering the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but has listened to his cry for help. From you comes the theme of my praise in the great assembly. Before those who fear you will I fulfill my vows. The poor will eat and be satisfied. They who seek the Lord will praise him. May your hearts live forever. May all the ends of the earth will remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nations will bow down before him. For dominion belongs to the Lord, and he rules over all nations. All the rich of the earth will feast and worship. All who go down to the dust will kneel before him, those who cannot keep themselves alive. Posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn. They will declare, he has done it. It is finished, as Jesus said. Now, this psalm starts out as a wail of lament, of suffering, but it quickly turns into a psalm of trust in God, of knowing that whenever someone is in pain and is in suffering, especially for their relationship with God, God is there. In the end, it says God does not hide his face. But what about the dark cloud? What about that dark cloud that obscured Jesus? Now, it's not meant to look like something that is obscuring Jesus. It's not meant to be alone. This dark cloud is actually the symbol of God's very presence. In Exodus chapter 19, verse 9, God appears to Moses in a very thick, cloudy darkness. And in Psalm 97, God is described as being surrounded by thick darkness. And so where is God when Jesus is being crucified? Is God distant? Is God somewhere else? Is he turned his face away? Is he not paying attention to Jesus? Not in the slightest. God perhaps may never have been closer to Jesus than in that moment when Jesus cried out to him. For 3 hours, God's darkness, God's presence was directly involved with Jesus. And for that moment of time when Jesus cried out, God heard him, and he did not turn his face away. Where is God when bad things happen to us? Where is God when we look around and we think, why me? Where is God when we wonder, why this, why now? Am I going to make it? God is right next to you. God does see, and God cares very deeply. And it may not feel like it because we're used to being able to see someone's presence. We're used to being able to feel that person next to you. But we can rest assured knowing that God cares, that God is always with you.